Yeah, I'll react to that, sure. Hey guys, okay. Shall we? Original link to the video, top of the description, right below that, link to the Discord, preemptive like. My name is Connor. If you're new, I like to learn things. I'm from New England. Let's go. Defending Britain. Who keeps the country safe? Forces. Okay. Sure. I will react.
Every second of every day, they protect us. They are the nearly 200,000 men and women of the UK's armed forces. By land, sea and air, they keep our islands safe. We go behind the scenes to shed new light on their world and reveal a few surprises along the way.
Hope everyone is doing well, by the way. Really do. Happy December.
In the English Channel, HMS Severn is fighting a war of economics. The Royal Navy polices the fishing industry out here, a job it's had for 400 years.
The rules are there for a reason, that is to protect the economy of the UK fishing industry, and so we have to enforce it if required. If people were allowed to go free rein on our fish stocks and in our waters, they would have no livelihood left.
The crew has a fishing trawler in its sights. On board, everything is checked. Nets and fishing gear are first. The holes have to be large enough to let young fish escape.
I reckon this will be all right. 9.7, it only needs to be above 80. The next stage of the inspection is a check of what's down below in the fish room. We'll be able to estimate the weight of each species. So we'll do that for a couple of species, just make sure it ties in with what's in the log on board that we've already checked. And then we'll just have a general look around.
So they're checking, make sure the right species are there?
Fish caught at sea are packed in ice to keep them fresh. Whatever the weather on deck, it's always freezing down here.
When we transfer these fish across, we'll make sure there's no ice or anything else mixed in that will affect the weight, and then we'll just put it straight on the scales.
Punishments can be severe. Fines of thousands
Losing
of pounds,
fishing slices?
seizure of fish or equipment, or criminal prosecution.
It's a necessity. I think you've got to be policed. If you break laws and you start landing fish that's not supposed to be landed, you're not doing yourself any favours because it drops the price on the market.
I trust that
With everything
guy.
above board, the Navy move on. On Salisbury Plain, the Royal Tank Regiment is on the move. In a world of remote piloted drones and laser-guided bombs, you might think the tank has had its day, but don't believe it.
There is a lot going on in the world at the moment. There are a lot of threats to the United Kingdom, as well as other democracies throughout the world. And in that case, it's entirely possible that the British Army, and therefore the Royal Tank Regiment, may be called forward. We are part of the reactive force. Our job is to ultimately deploy and fight overseas.
They train so they are quite literally ready for action. These tanks are permanently on standby. If a war breaks out in Europe, they could be on the front line in a matter of days. The centrepiece is the Challenger 2 main battle tank. At 62 tons and a top speed of nearly 40 miles an hour, it can go where it likes, especially
62 tons?
armed as it is with a 120mm gun on the
Did that say 62 tons?
2 tons. This is the Challenger 2 main battle tank. At 62 tons
Is that heavy even for a tank, or am I just wrong?
and a top speed of nearly 40 miles an hour, it can go where it likes, especially armed as it is with a 120mm gun on the front.
Tanks are essential if we are to provide a potent defence and a capability to combat threats overseas. We're moving roughly from a counterinsurgency focus into being focused again on fighting conventional warfare. And in that case, in all of the major sort of combat zones in the world, so Syria or Iraq or Ukraine, tanks are being used, tanks are fighting tanks. Sometimes only a tank will do. Will do.
So they're slightly curved right to give it a kind of spin? Or no?
One of the oldest jobs the army does takes place every day right in the heart of London. The Coldstream Guards have been protecting the royal palaces since Charles II was king back in 1660.
Anyone who turns around and says that they don't have, a sort of a feeling of pride as they march through the gates of Buckingham Palace, I think is probably lying to you. Your tunic, your bearskin, representing the Coldstream Guards and years of tradition, it makes you feel good.
This highly polished parade was a long time in the making. Everything has to be just right. There are no shortcuts when you're getting ready to guard the Queen.
You've got to do your belt, you've got the white in the belt, you've got the brass on the belt, you've got more brass, and then white in the belt as well. That's probably about half an hour or so.
And what about the bearskin? What's required there?
Just this hair, really. We just give it a wash every now and again, leave it to dry up.
Why is it called a bearskin? Is that actually bear hair?
Right down, you then comb it upwards and comb it back
Probably not. Okay.
down just to get it nice and fluffed up, and then again you wouldn't wash it once a month.
To be honest, when it comes onto the boots, you have to put time into your boots.
So is there some rivalry in the boots?
Between lads, they always try and have better boots. Oh yeah, my boots are more gleaming, it's just the way it is with the Guards,
Yeah, so for example, you get a scratch in your boots there, that's when you've got to go back to the start again, get them sort of redone, you're talking a good few hours work to get them sorted again. So obviously for every guy, it's just pride and joy is his boots. You just don't go near them, don't touch another guy's boots.
Nothing is left to chance. So before the iconic red tunics are put on, it's once round the parade square to make sure everyone knows their job.
I'm always amazed by marching, honestly. As simple as it seems, I feel like I would psych myself out and like not march in order. I don't know why that's the thing that scares me. But okay.
So we refer to that parade as the check parade, so it's our sort of final rehearsal. We like to think that the blokes know what they're doing by the time we get here, but it's just tidying up a few of the sort of, funnies that might go wrong on the day. So we go through the full mount, at sort of periods of the dismount, and then that's us complete, ready to step off in tunic and bearskin.
Then it's time for the finishing touches.
And most people, when you think London, you think of guys with big black hats and red tunics outside of Buckingham Palace.
I heard red was chosen, or I learned, because at the time it was a cheaper color to manufacture, to produce as a jacket. So that's cool.
In London, you think of guys with big black hats and red tunics outside of Buckingham Palace. Obviously, being a part of that's been, big privilege, and get to sort of go places where most sort of civilians don't get to go. I've been in 2.5 years now, and still, the pride of
whenever I watch these guys, I feel like I have bad posture.
Still, that doesn't change. It's the same the first time I've done it to even now.
It's a very proud feeling. You don't experience it really anywhere else.
When you stand there looking smart, you think, oh yeah, the public is seeing me looking smart, so it's a good feeling, really.
But this is just one side of the Coldstream Guards. The other looks like this.
Actions on attack, what will happen is...
These trainee guardsmen and recent recruits from other regiments are preparing for an ambush at the Catterick garrison in Yorkshire.
Excited to get on with some section attacks, do some fun stuff, running about, firing the weapon. So yeah, looking forward to today.
The section attacks, fighting, but discharging my weapon, to be honest. I haven't done it yet.
But before you can fire a rifle, it has to be clean.
Trigger guard, pistol grip, magazine housing, magazine release catch.
We're just stripping and assembling weapons after contacted last night and this morning, so they're pretty dirty, so you want to clean them just so you don't, so if anything does happen again, you're not less likely to get stoppages. It makes it less hassle for you.
Time then to dig in and wait to attack.
This is as close as we're going to get to the real thing at the moment.
Elsewhere in Yorkshire, the bomb squad is training to defuse improvised explosive devices, or IEDs. Teams from the Army, RAF and Royal Navy are all being tested.
All our scenarios are based upon devices that we've either seen in the past or currently, or potentially ones that we think could come in the future. So we try to test them in line with
I was going to say, like, what
threat.
about like thinking about your own types of bombs that could be created and working on those, but they do that.
Ones that we think could come in the future. So we try to test them in line with the threat in the UK and also the potential threat from maybe terrorist attacks.
Where possible, they use the robot. Called a cutlass, it can do it all.
You can open boots, open doors, it's got weapons on it, so you've got certain presets that will allow it to climb upstairs.
But sometimes, even the seemingly...
Is there going to be a time where we have these things rolling around with like giant machine guns on them and like we're going to be fighting robots against robots, or am I just insane? And maybe I don't know what I'm talking about.
Easy tasks prove tricky. The course is run by the Army's Explosive Ordnance Disposal Regiment, or EOD.
It's to test the ability to make sure that they're said to be working on the UK mainland streets.
One of the toughest tests for an EOD team is when someone's life is in danger. There's a device under this car. The driver is still inside. No time for the robot or the protective bomb suit.
Saving life is our priority at all costs. So my aim was to get down the road quickly as possible, but safely to assess the situation and try and remove him from the danger, not the danger from him.
Once clear, the cutlass is deployed.
What?
But the job isn't finished.
What was that?
And that means wearing the suit.
With all our remote means, everything we do remotely.
What did that just do?
The job isn't finished.
Maybe
and
he's
that
going to
means
say, and I
wearing
need
the
to stop
suit.
With all our remote means, everything we do remotely, we have to confirm manually. So whatever the robot does, I then have to go and trace, because sometimes things do get missed on the cameras, or we might not see the full device might not be separated properly. So then I have to go and confirm all that before I can allow anybody else to come down. As you can see, manually.
True, even if you think you did diffuse it, like the robot did its job, you still have to confirm that it did its job, which seems pretty dangerous too. Okay.
Dexterity can be quite tricky, especially in these sort of conditions. Obviously rain doesn't help. The suit is quite heavy itself, especially wearing the Nomex as well. It's very restrictive for breathing. Obviously it's for my safety. Mentally it's very fatiguing. Yeah, you're constantly thinking, what am I doing now?
But you enjoy it?
Yeah, very much so. As you can see, very happy.
So does that really protect you from an explosion? So if your average bomb went off, like your average bomb, obviously if it's a really big bomb, it'll do more damage than if it was a smaller bomb. So an average bomb that they would defuse, you're telling me that suit at that distance would protect them? Which is crazy if that's the case.
But you enjoy it? Yeah, very much so.
I mean, clearly they wouldn't make it if it didn't. So it seems like a dumb question, but do you know what I mean? Like, is it to protect them from all injury or just like the...
As you can see, very happy. Yeah, it's good. It's quite rewarding. You know, it's a very important job, and hopefully we're not needed, but it's we train very hard in case we are needed.
Before a bomb can be defused, it has to be discovered. That's often done thanks to the noses of the military working dogs, who come in all shapes and sizes.
This is my arms and explosive search dog, Geo. He's a 3-year-old golden retriever. He's the only golden retriever in service in the RAF and the British Army. I trust him with my life to do the job that I do.
Are you friends?
Massively friends, massively friends. He loves me, I love him, and we frustrate each other when we're working.
Geo's sense of smell has the power to save lives. He and Rob train hard to make sure that nose is at its best.
So this is a scent carousel. What I'm doing with
chose that
Gio
one.
is I've put a sample that he's trained to find into one of the pots, and his job is to go around and search in each individual pot in a systematic way.
So in order
his job is to go around and
to train the dog, right? The dog doesn't know, like, hey, I'm looking for explosives. Let me find it with my nose. So you got to train him, and I'm assuming you train him like with a bunch of like a certain explosive material, and only like when he like, and over time, like you give him a bunch of things to sniff with one sample of the explosive material, and whenever he sniffs that one, you give him a treat so that he's like, oh God, I got a treat. What happened? And then the next time when he sniffs something, he gets a treat. And over time and time again, he associates that smell with a treat. Is that how it works? And so in his mind, he's like, all right, how do I get food? How do I get food? Where's that smell? Oh, there it is. I'm getting food. Here it is, right? Does that make sense? Is that how it works?
Sample that he's trained to find into one of the pots, and his job is to go around and search in each individual pot in a systematic way, and then indicate and tell me which pot it on.
Gio leaves Rob in no doubt where the explosives are.
You sure?
And so I wonder how much time it takes to get the dog to where he's like, all right, I know the deal. I know how to get food. I'm looking for that smell. I smell it. Boom. And I wonder how long it takes the dog to get to that state.
And that means it's playtime.
And this builds up the bond between the dog and the handler. So I can have, as you've seen there, I can have a good play with him, chuck him around a bit, and it's the interaction between us as well. So he wants to keep playing with me. He wants to find the explosives as quick and as easily as he can, so he can get his ball and have a play with Dad. And that's what really drives him to go and find that Kong and keeps him going for so long.
Cutie.
RAF Brize Norton has around 40 dogs trained for a variety of roles.
So this is Chum. He's a 3-year-old collie, and he's trained as a drugs detection dog, working at mainly out of the terminal
Do you have
here.
bombs on you?
So as the bags come through, I'll send Chum onto him, and he'll methodically search each individual bag. This is all a big game to him, so we associate the scent that he's finding, so the drugs, with the ball, and he wants to work for his ball so he can have that play stage.
Not even treats, ball.
So he's gone back to that bag now, and this is where my interest, it'll help Chum out, and we'll work as a team to find anything. And that's Chum's indication there. He's showing me that there's something in that bag. So I'll put it back on in a second.
I want another dog. Oh, look how cute he is.
It's a massive game for him. Massive game. It's same as all. Even the explosive dogs, they don't realise how much danger they could potentially be.
Right, exactly.
How close they are to these.
They don't know what the heck they're doing. They just want to play.
No, we'll go around in a minute, mate. So yeah, it just replicates into a game, and they want to chase that ball for as long as they can.
Each dog has a different personality, but not always a name to match.
We've got an Alan at the moment, we've got an Ethel, we've had a Bubbles, we had one come in called Killer. Gives you a smile on your face every time you say Alan.
This is Alan.
Sit.
I would love a German Shepherd.
Don't stand still! Air Force, hold on, it's my dog! Jace! Hey, come on! Ah! The criminal draw weapon, stand still! Alan, leave green!
Alan is a fierce patrol dog, but he's not allowed to bite everyone.
So I don't want to sound like, oh, I could take a dog easy. I could beat up a dog. You know, I don't want to sound like that. But at the same time, look, I get like you're a bunch of situations, and so the dog biting your arm isn't helping anything. But I'd be really scared for the dog too. Like, all right, so the dog bites your arm. Yeah, it's gonna hurt a ton. It might break your. But in that time, couldn't you like? So he's not trying to resist, right? Because he's training the dog. But if it was like a life or death situation and the dog's got you on one arm, what happens if you grab the dog's legs or something and like smash it on the ground or something like that? clearly it works. So
The criminal draw the weapon, stand still. Alan, leave clean.
Alan is a fierce patrol dog, but he's not allowed to bite everyone.
When releasing a dog, same with a weapon, when it's endangering life, really is the main thing, or key assets. That's what we provide. So if somebody has intentions of harming persons or equipment, that's when we really can release a dog, yeah.
There is plenty to protect at RAF Bryce Norton. It's Britain's busiest military airbase. Supplies are flown from here to support operations around the world.
And if I was the policeman or army or whatever with the dog and they hurt my dog, I'd want to kill that person.
The most active of those is Op Shader, the fight against the so-called Islamic State. British jets have been flying sorties since September 2014. They've conducted nearly 1,400 airstrikes across Iraq and Syria. That's second only to the United States. The British effort is based at RAF Akrotiri in Cyprus. From there, 8 Tornado GR4s and 6 Typhoons fly there. From there, 8 Tornado GR4s and 6 Typhoons fly their missions. There is also a fleet of Reaper drones based in the Gulf. It's not just about dropping bombs. Crews are also tasked with gathering intelligence, the team on the ground scouring everything that comes in. Every time the jets go up...
Could you technically... Okay, so you know how... So the drones can clearly fly off and land fine, right, on their own. Could you technically, theoretically, make a giant passenger plane or a giant military plane like this one into a self-flying plane? I mean, it's the same concept as the drone, right? Just a bit bigger. Could you?
Up, they are joined by Voyager, a military version of the Airbus A330. This refueler makes the fight against IS possible. Pilots can come for a refill up to 3 times on a sortie, keeping them in the air for 7 hours. Other nations' jets also get fuel from Voyager, which allows the combined coalition force to fly missions around the clock. But this isn't the only operation on Cyprus. For decades, British soldiers have been helping to keep the peace on the island. They patrol the buffer zone between the Turkish and Greek sides as part of a United Nations operation. The 180-kilometre belt of land was finally fenced off in 1974 following a ceasefire. It marks the front lines of the Turkish and Greek armies. Troops from 7 Regiment Royal Logistic Corps are currently deployed. They patrol unarmed, checking no one is breaching the terms of the ceasefire.
Interesting.
In some places, the buffer zone is a few kilometres wide, others just a few metres. Many of the buildings show signs of the fighting. Nothing has really changed here since it stopped. The only new additions, emblems of the different regiments.
There's got to be so much history on that island on Cyprus, just from being where it is and for so many, just being like right where very ancient civilization was. Just there must be so much, like thousands and thousands of years of archaeological history.
Who've patrolled these streets. The UN says there are around 1,000 incidents a year in the buffer zone, from guns being fired to name-calling. The fighting ended 40 years ago, and as yet, no official peace deal has been signed, but talks continue.
So they both want the whole
island?
island?
There is a role the British military has been doing for even longer. It happens here, way out on the Yorkshire moors. This is RAF Fylingdale's radar station, where every minute of every day there is a team looking up on our behalf, in case there's a nuclear attack.
This is the Space Operations Room. This is where we carry out both our primary and secondary mission. Primary being ballistic missile early warning, so
So essentially, when missiles are launched, we will track them. The second mission of space surveillance, making sure we know satellites are where they're supposed to be and they're not doing anything they're not supposed to.
Throughout the day, we get this, what we call a RAF job, which is basically like a bus timetable for satellites. So these are the objects that we're interested in. What I've put up here is the orbit for the International Space Station. It comes up as object 25544. The ISS is obviously a huge object, so if we miss that object, we've done something very wrong. But yeah, the smaller objects are the ones that we have a bit more interest in.
They're tracking around 40,000 objects in space. Only about 2,000 are working satellites. So they are looking out for potential collisions, but also where new satellites could go.
The ballistic missile threat kind of captures the public imagination.
Wait, so do all satellites have like tiny booster rockets on them to slightly change their course in case of a projected collision?
Most people live through the Cold War and they understand what it means. The ballistic missile threat kind of captures the public imagination because most people live through the Cold War and they understand what it means. I think trying to explain to people that denial of space would take away some of their basic things they've come used to these days, no Facebook, no social media, probably has a bigger impact, but they probably just don't really connect it with what's happening in space.
But the primary mission remains providing early warning of a nuclear strike. They train hard and often, so they're ready.
What's up, Fishery received?
Okay, Coldstream 1-1.
Copy.
Eyes on for build-up.
Tell us what's happening here.
At the moment, the satellite's picked up a large heat source from a missile launch or a space launch. They're preparing now just in case it generates a site report, which is a launch predicted impact for a missile. And the guys at the front, they're talking to UK and American Higher Authority to make sure they're receiving Fylindell's data.
UK and US, baby.
Result valid for 2 missiles. Acknowledge CTF 345. Acknowledge UK Spock.
So that'll be the launch point and the predicted impact point and the times the missile is expected to impact on the ground.
East 122.02, earliest time 093651. Launch origin.
Historically, the threat came from Soviet Russia, and elsewhere, once again, it is the Russians keeping our armed forces busy. Russian planes repeatedly buzz NATO airspace, a modern threat the RAF is ready for. There have been jets on standby in the UK every single minute since the Battle of Britain in 1940. This training exercise shows how quickly they react. In minutes, they are alongside a private jet which is off its flight plan. If this were real and the jet refused to divert, the Typhoon pilot could be ordered to shoot it down. Back in the English Channel, it is the Russians once again demanding attention. HMS Seven drops its role as fishery protection to help.
We were tasked by the Navy to intercept a Russian landing craft or a landing ship that was returning from the Mediterranean and heading back, we believe, towards its home port in Russia. We sighted it about...
So is it going to Murmansk or is it going to St. Petersburg?
12 miles, and we closed in and put the ship just astern, so behind the Russian ship, had about a mile to follow her up the English Channel. Okay. The Royal Navy regularly conducts escort duties as part of our responsibility to protect UK waters. At the end of the encounter with her, we have a tradition that warships salute each other. And so when we departed the escort, we conducted a sail past of the Russian ship, and we also hoisted an international signal code, code Uniform Whiskey, which wishes them a safe onward voyage.
But the Russians sailed on without responding.
That was cool. That was a cool video. And that 23 minutes went by very fast. Military chefs bring Christmas cheer. Okay, really cool video, guys. Awesome video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you learned something or can teach me something in the comments, and I'll see you guys next time. All right, bye, guys.